In this edition of DX101, we're talking logbook analysis, and this is part 3, the final segment in our 3-part series. We've already looked at how to get your data into a spreadsheet if you don't already have it in one, and then how to take that spreadsheet data and start doing some pivot tables and things like that to do analysis. We've talked about how to import online resources such as Mesa Mike's US station list to do a comparison between known FCC database entries of stations and your own log to do some analysis there to identify some gaps. We're going to do a little bit more analysis, kind of flesh that out with some more examples for you of some of the things you can do. And we're going to introduce a second online resource. This one is mediumwavelist.org that we're going to use to do some analysis for stations outside of the United States as well. So stay tuned. It's segment number 3 of DX101's look at logbook analysis. Which stations from the Mesa Mike list that we've heard and not heard. There's a couple things that we can do. The first thing I want to do is I want to get a sense of how many stations have been heard in each state compared to the overall population. So I'm going to select all here, do a Control-A select all. I'm going to copy, actually I'm not going to copy, I'm just going to do a select all here on this one. And then I'm going to go to Insert and Pivot Table. And we're going to do this on a new worksheet, okay? And now we're pivot tabling we're making a second pivot table here. What this one allows me to do is now I can come over here and I can say, okay, show me each state. I want to see a heard, not heard in our column, okay? And I'm going to use call sign again as my value. So now what I've done is I've created another pivot table like we were doing before. So I see each state, how many stations there are, how many stations I've heard, how many stations I've not heard. There's the total breakdown. So now I'm going to copy this and I'm going to paste this into a new tab here with just the values. And we're going to get rid of this first row. I don't need that first row. And we're going to call this state, not heard, heard, and then total stations. Now I'm going to add another one, % of total. Okay. So what I want to do now is I'm going to hit the type in my first cell here. I'm going to type in equal. I'm going to click on my heard cell in my first row there, a divided slash there, divide symbol, and then click on my total station column in that total station cell, that first row. Now I'm going to hit enter. Now I haven't heard anything in Alaska, so it's going to give me a 0. But when I now apply that down the line, by double clicking, you'll see it's giving me percentages. Now I'm going to convert those percentages into instead of a decimal place percentage, we're going to go over here to our home tab and click on this number percentage thingy right here. And that now has created a percentage of the total for us that is heard. I'm going to double click on these and kind of express these out a little bit because I'm, again, a format stickler here. So I'm going to do the same thing we've been doing before. I'm going to start in the first cell and highlight all of my numerical values here in this row except for the total at the bottom. I'm going to go to the left. I'm going to sort largest to smallest, and let's zoom in a little bit here. All right, so now you'll see that Louisiana is our best state, as you might imagine, at 74% of the total stations that I could hear have been heard. 53 out of 72. Now, I will tell you here, if I look at this, I know there's a couple of duplicates. This is one thing you will find in the Mesa Mike list. Sometimes you might find a duplicate in here every once in a while. So, for instance, I think it's this one is a duplicate. For some reason, the nighttime is on its own line. And this one's a duplicate. The nighttime here was on its own line. So there we go. So if I delete that, now I can come back over here. I can turn that to a 17. and then make that a 70, and that'll recalculate now to 76%. So you may run into some duplicates as you do your analysis. I'm going to rename this spreadsheet state herd percent, and then this one we're going to call this Mesa Mic pivot. Mesa Mic pivot. Okay. So on my state herd percent, what I'm doing now is I'm identifying where are my states that I have the greatest chance of hearing everything that's there. Louisiana is obviously number one. So now how do I get those? Well, I've already filtered down for the state of Louisiana here, right? Filter the Mesa Mic list to show just the stations in Louisiana. And now I can filter down to take out the yeses and just leave the nos. And here you go. These are the 17 stations in the state of Louisiana I have not heard. And I know what their power is and what their day and night power is and what frequency to find them on. And I'm going to do a custom sort here really quick, actually. I'm going to go over here and do a custom sort under sort and filter. And right now we have it by call. I want to change this to be by state, A to Z. I'm going to add another level by frequency, smallest to largest. So there you go. Now I've got my frequency in order here. These are the 17 stations I need to go after by frequency, and I can see their day and nighttime power. So I can say, oh, wow, okay, that one's 5,000 kilowatts during the daytime, then it powers down at night, because we did see that as I think it was 500 watt nighttime power. I think this one was 209, I think, if I remember right. So that's one, KMBS on 1310. I need to spend some time on 1310 at sunset first and see if I can catch them while they're still 5,000 watts before they power down. Because I guarantee you, if I go back to my freaking time of day, 1310, I have 2 stations that I've heard nighttime, 1 sunset. So I have some work I need. I've only heard 3 stations on that frequency. I need to do some work sunset and also maybe a little sunrise too. That might be another option. When they power up in the morning, I might be able to get them that way. So hopefully now this shows you how I can use a combination of my logbook and what I have heard and an online resource like Mesa Mics where I can then see the total population so I can then identify what I haven't heard. And now I've identified 17 stations that I can target to try to fill in those gaps in my logbook. So that's 17 stations now that I know I can go after. And even if I hear 60, 70% of that, I'm adding quite a bit into my logbook that I didn't have already. And when you're getting high in your logbook numbers, or you're trying to get your numbers high, every station counts, right? Every station that you're trying to log counts. So this is how I would attack it. I can do the exact same analysis with Mississippi. I can come over here to unselect Louisiana and select Mississippi. And now here's all the stations I have not heard in Mississippi. Same thing. I've got a duplicate here on a 1580. And that was 51 watts. So I can fill that in there. But now I can identify, okay, what are the ones that I'm missing now on 1580? And I can go in order by frequency and try to find those. Let me go back to my custom sort again. Apply that. Now it's in order by frequency. Boom, there we go. So again, this is one way that we can use to fill the gaps in our logbook. So it's by that frequency and time of day of knowing where do I have gaps by frequency based on what I have already heard. And now I can take that already heard data, combine it with some online resources, and identify what I haven't heard and what's sitting there, and create a whole target list for myself of stations that I can target and frequencies that I can just sit on and try to add those into the logbook. Let me look at that one on 890, the HJA in Laurel, Mississippi. Why have I not logged them yet? 10,000 watt daytime, 10,000 watt critical hour, or pre-sunrise. That's huge. There's no reason I shouldn't have 890 in my logbook right now, but I don't. But now I know when I need a target, right? So I'm gonna spend some time on sunset and sunrise. Let's look at our time of day here. I can just type in 890 and filter down for just that frequency. I have 3 stations heard, all 3 at nighttime, Nothing sunrise, nothing sunset. So obviously, if I spend some sunset sunrise time on 890, there's a good chance I'll hear Laurel, Mississippi. That's one new station added. Now up to 18 stations I've identified that are well within my reach to be able to add to my logbook. So you see how this starts to work. Let me show you another thing that we can actually do here with the Mesa mic list once we've identified that heard, not heard. Let me go back to my Mesa mic pivot. This is great. I'm really just kind of blown away by this. I'm going to move state to my filter, okay? Because I want to look at the state of Texas. Now, I've heard, I think it was 81 stations in Texas. It's about 28% of the overall population of stations that are there, I've heard. I want to get that number up. I don't think I'll be able to get to 100%, but I want to get that number up. But I know that here in east end of Louisiana that I'm in, eastern Texas is my best bet. You know, out El Paso towards New Mexico that way, gonna be a little tougher. But, you know, basically everything from like Dallas, Austin, San Antonio east is kind of my main kind of window for being able to hear anything. So how do I identify those stations so that I can target them specifically? Well, let me show you. I'm back at my pivot table. I've moved state to the filter, and we're going to go down here and we're going to select Texas and hit OK. So now I'm only looking at state or entries, data entries that have Texas as the state. Okay. So now what do I want to do? Well, I want to base this off of what cities the station is in. So I'm going to use the COL, the city of license, and put that in my rows. And then I need to know, okay, so that I have some stations there that I haven't heard. How do I go after them? What stations are they? I'm going to put my frequency also in rows. So now this shows me the stations that are there in that city, and then the frequencies the stations are on in that city. And I can actually move my heard, not heard back over to my filter here now, and I can just look at the no's. And I can say, okay, I haven't heard anything on any of these right now. All the ones you see right now, these frequencies in these cities, these are all not heards. So I can come back over and I can say, okay, here's an Austin on 1490. I can try for them. I can try to find, I know Beaumont's another one. Here's a Beaumont on 990. I can try for them. Well, that's two right now. Just for cursory glance of just cities off the top of my head that I know are within my kind of range to hear. 2 new logs. So now, if we're counting the 17 from Louisiana, the one that we identified from Mississippi that should be super easy, these two, we're to 20 stations that I now can target that should be relatively easy for me to add without even going any deeper on Mississippi or any deeper on Texas. 20 stations that I know I can add to my have the very good potential to add to my logbook just by doing this research. Now, could I have added those anyway? Yeah, eventually. But this helps me target them and go after them much quicker. And then, once I do that part and get this kind of stuff out of the way, then I can spend more time going after the exotic stuff because I've knocked out what should be easy. I have found over the years it's very easy to miss the low-hanging fruit because we get so tempted by the exotic stuff. So this kind of analysis that we're doing here is going to help us to be able to go in and find that low-hanging fruit much easier, get it into our logbooks. So I'm at least at 20 right now. Next, we're going to look and see another online resource that we can use to add stations we're missing to our logbook with a little bit different look outside of the US by going back to our old friends at Medium Wave Lists. Another area that I have identified that I want to target is, for me, stations from Cuba. And the reason for that is, in my location, I've got a pretty good look at most of the island of Cuba. I should be able to hear the vast majority of what's on that island. And there are 3 national networks, Rebelde, Progresso, and Relo, which, by and large, should be relatively easy for us to hear here in the southeastern United States, most of the frequencies that they're on, because each of those networks are going to be on multiple frequencies. So 2 things I need to check here. 1, what stations have I heard already? 2, what other outlets are out there that I haven't heard yet? So I need to know what outlets are there, and then I can compare that to what I've heard, right? Just like we did with Louisiana and some of the others. So here's how we do that. The first thing we're going to do is I'm going to go over here to my country on my spreadsheet of my actual log export and go to Cuba, and we're going to filter down for just the Cuban stations. And just like we did before, I'm going to highlight my call sign column over here, wherever my station call sign or slogan or identifier is. We're going to highlight that entire column and copy it. Add it to a new spreadsheet. We're going to call this one, go ahead and paste it here. Now we're going to call this one Cubans. Okay. So anyone in the southeastern United States or eastern United States that has a good look at Cuba, this is something you're going to want to probably do. Okay. So I have in my logbook, because I have a unique requirement on my call sign and call letters field, I've had to use, I can't just use Radio Rebellion because all these different Rebellion outlets. So I had to use Radio Rebellion parentheses of the frequency that it's on. Okay, that's how I was able to get around my unique identifier requirement. So I'll have a Rebellion here and a Rebellion here and a Rebellion here, a Rebellion here, and so forth. So I need to now use that list of what I've heard and then compare that to the known list of Rebellion outlets that are out there. So to do that, I'm going to go back to our friends at Medium Wave List. You may remember from our logbook video, we talked about Medium Wave List, mwlist.org. Link's going to be down in the description below. And they have these quick and easy lists that you can use. I'm actually going to show you how to get there. So if you go to just mediumwavelist.org and then click on Medium Wave, click Quick and Easy right here. And then click on, for our purposes for Cuba, North America, Central America, Caribbean. That's going to take us here to this page. And I'm going to start on just 530 kilohertz because I want to start on the low end of the band. So here we have a Radio Rebellion that we have. And this shows you every single frequency that has a known Rebellion outlet on it as of, the information that has been updated by DXers and so forth. So I'm just going to highlight all these, copy them, go back to my Cuban spreadsheet here, and I'm going to start a section here. I'm going to call it, Rebellion. Now, I know there's one on 530, so I'm going to type that, and then I'm going to paste in the rest of the outlets that are there, because 530 is not on that list that we copied because we were already on 530. So here's all of them. Now, they're all in a single cell. They're not in individual cells for each one of those, and I want them to be, so I can do stuff with them. So what we're going to use is a very familiar technique. We're going to add a comma or a semicolon or this vertical line, whatever, so we can use our old friend text to columns again. So we're just going to do this, and we're going to add that vertical space in here. And this is going to allow us to be able to basically work with this data that we have now. Now, I'm sure there's probably an easier way, like a find and replace or something like that, that I could use to do what I'm doing right now. But I'm just going to do it. It's not that big of a list. I'm just going to use the old-fashioned list, or old-fashioned way. I'm going to get rid of 5025 shortwave because I don't care about that one right now. All right, so here's my full list. I'm just going to highlight it and left justify to make it easier to work with. Okay, so we have made our list of everything that's here. Okay, there we go. That's better. Now I need to separate those out. So we're gonna go to data, text to columns. I'm gonna choose the option for delimited. Next, since we did this space or this vertical character earlier, it's kind of already there. You can already see what it's doing down at the bottom. And now every one of my data pieces here, all my frequencies are in their own individual cell. Now I'm going to left justify because I am, again, kind of a format guy. And all I have to do at this point is compare this list of known frequencies to what I have logged over here on the left-hand side. And then I do the same thing for Radio Progresso, which starts on 600 kilohertz is the first Progresso outlet. I can just copy this entire Rebellion list or Progresso outlet list right here. And then I think it's 570 is the first Relo. So I just copy the known Relo list. And I do the exact same thing for all three. And actually, I've already, like those cooking shows where they already kind of make one behind the scenes. I've already got one here for us. And what I basically did is I went in, I used my styles up here, my good and bad, to color. Anything I'd heard is green, anything I hadn't heard is red. And that leaves me with 23 outlets, 23 frequencies that I can go look for a Cuban station that should be within my reach. So now we're up to almost 50 stations, just in a very basic one state, two state kind of feel. And these Cubans, I'm up to almost 50 stations that I can add to my logbook if I can hear all those, or even if I get, some of those. I'm getting, let's say, 30 out of the 50. That's a pretty big chunk, right? So you can see how this kind of analysis, and this is all I did, is here's my list of everything that I've logged. Here's my list of known outlets. I did the comparison. This helps me identify what I'm missing. Now I go an extra layer here because I'm doing air checks for the YouTube channel. So I want to track which ones I've air checked and uploaded to YouTube. You guys don't have to do that, but if you're just looking at the basics, have I heard it, yay or nay? There you go. This is the list of what I've heard, and here's the have I heard it, yay or nay list. The frequencies that are there. So I can easily identify, just by doing a little bit of analysis and using a couple of online resources like Mesa Mics and Medium Wave List, where are my gaps in my logbook? How can I add things to my logbook that aren't already there? And how can I see what I've already heard to help me know what I need to do next? And all this is possible because I digitized my logbook and put it into a format that can be put into a spreadsheet. And then from there, I can use the power of spreadsheets to help me identify those gaps. It's really that easy. So hopefully this has been helpful for you and shown you that logbooks on the computer can be pretty helpful. It can help us identify those gaps in our logbook. And again, I know not every DXer is going to care that much, right? They just hear what they hear, and if they hear it, great. If they don't, it's no big deal. And that's fine. But for those folks who are trying to squeeze every bit of juice out of that lemon, this is a great way to do that by using the power of the spreadsheets and the different functions that are there. So we looked at the export, and we looked at the pivot tables. We looked at the VLOOKUP. We looked at the text to columns. We looked at using things like Mesa Mic and Medium Wave List and pulling those outside resources in and combining those by using those functions in Excel with our existing logbook and how we can use that. Now, these aren't the only things you can do, and there's other ways of doing some of what we've done here. There are formulas you can build to have it automatically calculate some of the stuff. That's beyond the scope of what we're talking about here today. I just want to show a basic tutorial on things like pivot tables, VLOOKUP, and text to columns, and how you can use those basic functions in Excel to help you analyze your logbook so you can get more DX. If you want to go any further complications in this, or use extravagant formulas to do automatic calculations for you and have things already kind of built in and all that kind of stuff, go for it, knock yourself out. This is how I do it. It's not the only way to do it, but it's one way. And so hopefully this helps somebody be able to do what we're doing here at DX Central to analyze our log. This is the process that I usually do in August, before I start my DX season September 1st. So I'd usually do it before the DX season to set my goals. So for instance, I can say, I want to add 5 stations from Cuba. I want to add 10 stations from Louisiana and 10 from Mississippi and 7 from Texas or whatever. I can set those goals prior to the season starting. But I can do it because I know it's there and I know it's not there. And I've done the analysis to be able to identify those opportunities. So if you're wanting to get more out of your DX sessions, if you're stuck in a rut where you feel like you're DXing the same frequency every night, or you're hearing the same stations all the time, this is the kind of stuff that can break you out of those ruts and help keep you motivated and keep you excited about DXing because there's new possibilities that are around the corner. As always, if you found this information to be helpful, we'd appreciate it if you give us a thumbs up on the video, and don't forget to leave a comment down below and let us know how you do your analysis, what you're finding. Don't forget to also subscribe and hit the bell icon so you can be notified when new videos are available. From all of us here at DX Central, my friends, 73 Best of DX, we appreciate your support. We appreciate you watching this video. It means so much to us. Now, let's go hit the bands, but before we do, let's go see what we've already heard in our logbook.